The Lotus Sutra. This digital version of the original publication is distributed according to the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 license agree. Meant and the provisions stated on the website at http://www.newmattercenter.com/. This PDF file may be printed and distributed according to the terms of use established on the website. The file itself is distributed with certain security provisions in place that disallow modification. However, if any Buddhist group or scholar of Buddhism has legitimate reason to modify and or adapt the contents of any such file, such as for inclusion of the contents in a publicly available online database of Buddhist sources, please contact us for permission and unrestricted files. DBET PDF version. Copyright symbol 2009. BDK English Tripitaka Series. The Lotus Sutra. Taish Volume 9, Number 262. Translated from the Chinese of Kumrajiva. By Zagunari Kubo. And Akira Ueyama. New Martyr Center for Buddhist Translation and Research. 2007. Copyright symbol 2007 by Bucky Dend Kai Kai and New Martyr Center for Buddhist Translation and Research. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transcribed in any form or by any means. Electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise. Without the prior written permission of the publisher. Revised 2nd edition, 2007. ISBN 978-1-886439-39-9. Library of Congress Catalog Card Number 2006939375. Published by New Martyr Center for Buddhist Translation and Research. 2620 Waring Street, Berkeley, California 94704. Printed in the United States of America. A message on the publication of the English Tripitaka. The Buddhist canon is said to contain 84,000 different teachings. I believe that this is because the Buddha's basic approach was to prescribe a different treatment for every spiritual ailment, much as a doctor prescribes a different medicine for every medical ailment. Thus his teachings were always appropriate for the particular suffering individual and for the time at which the teaching was given, and over the ages not one of his prescriptions has failed to relieve the suffering to which it was addressed. Ever since the Buddha's great demise over 2000 years ago, his message of wisdom and compassion has spread throughout the world. Yet, no one has ever attempted to translate the entire Buddhist canon into English. Throughout the history of Japan, it is my greatest wish to see this done and to make the translations available to the many English-speaking people who have never had the opportunity to learn about the Buddha's teachings. Of course, it would be impossible to translate all of the Buddha's 84,000 teachings in a few years. I have, therefore, had 139 of the scriptural texts in the prodigious Taish edition of the Chinese Buddhist canon selected for inclusion in the first series of this translation project. It is in the nature of this undertaking that the results are bound to be criticized. Nonetheless, I am convinced that unless someone takes it upon himself or herself to initiate this project, it will never be done. At the same time, I hope that an improved, revised edition will appear in the future. It is most gratifying that, thanks to the efforts of more than 100 Buddhist scholars from the East and the West. This monumental project has nearly gotten off the ground. May the rays of the wisdom of the Compassionate One reach each and every person in the world. New Martyr Yehan, founder of the English. The 7th of August, 1991 Tripurka Project. V. Editorial foreword. In January 1982, Dr. New Martyr Yehan, the founder of the Bukhi Dend Kai Kai Society for the Promotion of Buddhism, decided to begin the monumental task of translating the complete Taisha edition of the Chinese Tripurka, Buddhist canon, into the English language. Under his leadership, a special preparatory committee was organized in April 1982. By July of the same year, the Translation Committee of the English Tripurka was officially convened. The initial committee consisted of the following members: late Hanayama Shy, Chairperson; late Bunshjun Ishigami-san; late Kamata Shigeo, Kaneoka Shy, Maeda Sengoku, Niriyasuki; late Seiki Shink; late Shiori Ritatsu, Tamaru Noriyoshi; late Tamura Kwanzaa, Uriju Rishin, and Ueyama Akira. Assistant members of the committee were as follows: Kanazawa Atsushi, Vdanabshko, Rolf Geibel of New Zealand, and Rudy Smet of Belgium. After holding planning meetings on a monthly basis, the committee selected 139 texts for the first series of translations, an estimated 100 printed volumes in all. The texts selected are not necessarily limited to those originally written in India but also include works written or composed in China and Japan. While the publication of the first series proceeds, the texts for the second series will be selected from among the remaining works. This process will continue until all the texts, in Japanese as well as in Chinese, have been published. Frankly speaking, it will take perhaps 100 years or more to accomplish the English translation of the complete Chinese and Japanese texts, for they consist of thousands of works. Nevertheless, as Dr. New Martyr wished, it is the sincere hope of the committee that this project will continue unto completion, even after all its present members have passed away. Dr. New Martyr passed away on the 5th of May 1994, at the age of 97. Entrusting his son, Mr. New Martyr Toshiide, with the continuation and completion of the translation project. The committee also lost its able and devoted 7. Editorial foreword. Chairperson, Professor Hanayama Shy, on the 16th of June, 1995, at the age of 63. After these severe blows, the committee elected me, then Vice President of Musashino Women's College, to be the chair in October 1995. The committee has renewed its determination to carry out the noble intention of Dr. New Martyr, under the leadership of Mr. New Martyr Toshiide. The present members of the committee are Maeda Sengoku, Chairperson; Ishigami-san, Ichishima Shin, Kaneoka Shy, Niriyasuki; Tamaru Noriyoshi, Uriju Rishin, Ueyama Akira, Kenneth K. Tanaka; Watanabe, and assistant member Yonezawa Yoshiyasu. The New Martyr Center for Buddhist Translation and Research was established in November 1984, in Berkeley, California, USA, to assist in the publication of the BDK English Tripurka First Series. The publication committee was organized at the New Martyr Center in December 1991. Since then the publication of all the volumes has been and will continue to be conducted under the supervision of this committee in close cooperation with the editorial committee in Tokyo. Maeda Sengoku, Chairperson, Editorial Committee of the BDK English Tripitaka. 8. Publishers Forward. On behalf of the members of the Publication Committee, I am happy to present this volume as the latest contribution to the BDK English Tripitaka series. The Publication Committee members have worked to ensure that each volume in the series has gone through a rigorous succession of editorial and bookmaking efforts. The initial translation and editing of the Buddhist scriptures found in this and other BDK English Tripitaka volumes are performed under the direction of the editorial committee in Tokyo, Japan, chaired by Professor Sengoku Maeda, Professor Emeritus of Musashino University. Both the editorial committee in Tokyo and the publication committee, headquartered in Berkeley, California, are dedicated to the production of clear, readable English texts of the Buddhist canon. In doing so, the members of both committees and associated staff work to honor the deep faith, spirit, and concern of the late Reverend Dr. Johann Neumata, who founded the BDK English Tripitaka series in order to disseminate Buddhist teachings throughout the world. The long-term goal of our project is the translation and publication of the texts in the 100-volume Taisha edition of the Chinese Buddhist canon, along with a few influential extra-canonical Japanese Buddhist texts. The list of texts selected for the first series of this translation project may be found at the end of each volume in the series. As recently appointed chair of the publication committee, I am deeply honored to serve in the post formerly held by the late Dr. Philip B. Yampolsky, who was so good to me during his lifetime, the esteemed Dr. Kenneth K. Inada, who has had such a great impact on Buddhist studies in the United States, and the beloved late Dr. Francis H. Cook, a dear friend and colleague. In conclusion, I wish to thank the members of the Publication Committee for the extraordinary efforts they have undertaken in the course of preparing this volume for publication. Senior Editor Marianne Dresser, Hudaya Kandajaya, Aisho Naju, Reverend Kiyoshi Yamashita, and Reverend Brian Nagate, President of the Neumata Center for Buddhist Translation and Research. John R. McRae, Chairperson. Publication Committee. 9. Contents. A message on the publication of the English Tripitaka. Neumata Johann v. Editorial Forward Maeda Sengoku 7. Publishers Forward John R. McRae 9. Translators Introduction Zagunari Kubo and Akira Ueyama 13. The Lotus Sutra. Chapter I Introduction 3. Chapter 2. Skillful Means 23. Chapter 3. A Parable 47. Chapter 4. Willing Acceptance 79. Chapter V Herbs 95. Chapter 6. Prediction 103. Chapter 7. The Apparitional City 113. Chapter 8. The 500 disciples receive their predictions 139. Chapter 9. The predictions for those who still have more to learn, and for those who do not 151. Chapter X. The Expounder of the Dharma 157. Chapter 11. The Appearance of a Jeweled Stupa 167. Chapter 12. Devadatta 179. Chapter 13. Perseverance 187. Chapter 14. Ease in Practice 193. Chapter 15. Bodhisattvas emerging from the earth 209. Chapter 16. The lifespan of the Tathagata 223. Chapter 17. Description of merits 233. Chapter 18. The merits of joyful acceptance 245. Chapter 19. The bonnets obtained by an expounder of the Dharma 251. 11. Contents. 12. Chapter XX. Bodhisattva Sadparibhshta 265. Chapter XXI. The Transcendent Powers of the Tathagata 271. Chapter XXII. Entrustment 277. Chapter 23. Ancient Accounts of Bodhisattva Bhajyaja 279. Chapter Ksiv. Bodhisattva Gagadasvara 289. Chapter XXV. The Gateway to Every Direction, manifested by Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, 295. Chapter XXVI. Dra 303. Chapter Xksai. Ancient Accounts of King Ubhavihar 307. Chapter Xksait. Encouragement of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra 313. Glossary 319. Bibliography 325. Index 327. A list of the volumes of the BDK English Tripitaka, First Series, 345. Translator's Introduction. This translation was made from the Chinese version by Kumrajva, the Miao. Fa Lian Hua Jing, in 7 fascicles, Taish Volume 9, Number 262, 1C 1262b1. Arig. Inali from the royal family of Kaka in the present-day autonomous province of Xinjiang, China. Kumrajva is generally believed to have translated the Sadharmapwakastra, scripture of the White Lotus of the Marvelous Law, into Chinese in 406 CE. In translating the Chinese text into English, we used the Kasuga edition of Kumrajva's version of the Lotus Sutra as the basic text, rather than the Taish edition. With very few exceptions, the readings in these two editions are almost exactly the same in meaning, and the differences are too slight to have any significant effect on the translation. We have tried to make our translation as readable as possible without straying from the original meaning. The last line of the first verse in Chapter 23, Taish Volume 9, Number 262. 53b25, which we have translated as, I have paid homage to the Bhagavat / in order to attain the utmost wisdom, has no corresponding reading in any extant Sanskrit manuscript, nor is it found in the Tibetan canon or the Chinese version. Translated from the Sanskrit by Dharmarika in 267 CE. Taish Volume 9, No. 263. Furthermore, it is absent in a number of authoritative editions of the Buddhist canon in Chinese. According to the late Professor S.H.K. Kaputojai, the foremost specialist in various editions of Kumrajva's version of the Lotus Sutra, the Kasuga edition is superior to other editions. The most reliable edition, printed in 1263, is now kept at the Chdaji in Nara. We are pleased to say that this text was published in facsimile under the editorship of Dr. Kaputojai, Tokyo, the Ryukai, 1979. Furthermore, at the advice of Dr. Kaputojai, the late Professor Yukio Sakamoto, included this version of the text along with his 3-volume Japanese translation in the pocketbook series published by Iwanami Shoten, Tokyo, 1962-67. In many cases, however, we have not necessarily followed the traditional Sino-Japanese interpretation. 13. Translator's Introduction. In this connection we have consulted the Sanskrit and, on rare occasions, the Tibetan versions of the former, the so-called Central Asian recension, and, in particular the Kashgar manuscript, is of great importance. This manuscript was no doubt copied in the ancient oasis town of Khotan, but it is generally called the Kashgar manuscript because the majority of the manuscript was obtained there in 1903 by N.F. Petrovsky, the Imperial Russian consul at the time. The manuscript unfortunately has not been kept intact. It is now scattered in a number of places throughout the world and some folios are missing or damaged. Nevertheless, the available portions have been almost completely reproduced in facsimile under the editorship of Professor Loksh Chandra of the International Academy of Indian Culture in New Delhi, 1976, reprinted by the Ryukai in 1977. As the fruit of painstaking work, Professor Hirofumi Toda of Tokushima University published a romanization of this text, Tokushima, 1981. It is interesting to note here that in a number of cases, particularly those of Chinese proper names, either in transliteration or translation, Kumrajva Sva. Sean agrees with the readings of the Central Asian Sanskrit recension rather than that in others, such as those found in Nepal or at the ancient site of Gilgit in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent and some of those found in Tibet. In such cases we have gladly adopted the version from the Central Asian recension, since some of the readings in Chinese were puzzling. Within the Buddhist canon, the Lotus Sutra is one text that should be read as a whole. We recommend reading the text from the beginning and continue in chapter by chapter so that this magnificent drama can be fully grasped as it unfolds. In this sense, chapter I can be seen as a dramatic prelude, while the well-known parables that emerge during the course of the sutra serve to clarify and enliven the entire narrative. For the reader who wants a quick summary of the Lotus Sutra, we suggest the preface to Professor Leon Hovitz's meticulous work, The Scripture of the Lotus Blossom of the Fine Dharma, New York, Columbia University Press, 1976. Those who wish to conduct further research into the Lotus Sutra are advised to consult an indispensable bibliographical work by Professor Hajime Nakamura. Indian Buddhism, A Survey with Bibliographical Notes, Hirokata, Kansai Uni. Versity of Foreign Studies publication, 1980, and an earlier work by Akira Ueyama. A Bibliography of the Sanskrit Texts of the Sadar Orchestra, Canberra. Australian National University Press, 1970. The latter volume includes information on versions in other languages. 14. Translator's Introduction. Acknowledgements. Our translation work on the RST edition of this volume was first launched in the spring of 1980. Our hope was that the final result would be a text readily understandable to English readers. Since then the work has often been interrupted by other commitments. During these years we have been indebted to the assistance of a number of people. Among them, Dr. Gregory Chopin and Dr. Terry Abbott joined the first stage of our project and gave of their time slicely. In the course of our revisions, Dr. James Hubbard spared no pains in going through the entire English text. We are grateful to him not only for his correction of our English but also for the suggestions stemming from his excellent knowledge of Buddhist Chinese. In the very final stages, we decided to rapidly review the translation by once again comparing the Chinese with the Sanskrit versions. In this process, we were assisted by Miss Keiko Thiel and Dr. James Rayside, who helped us with nuances and shades of meaning in their native languages. We must also thank Mr. S. Kawabata and Mr. T. Toratu, who was, throughout, unsparing in his efforts to guide the project to a conclusion. Last but not least, our heartfelt gratitude goes to the staff members of the International Institute for Buddhist Studies and the International Department of the Ryukai for their untiring assistance. We feel pleased and honored that our translation has been adopted in this series, and we believe this must indicate that the philosophy underlying our translation matches the goals of the Society for the Promotion of Buddhism, Buki Dend Kai Kai, and its English Tripurka series. 15. The Lotus Sutra. Chapter I. Introduction. Thus have I heard. Once the Buddha was staying in the city of Ajaga, on the mountain called Gdraka, together with a great assembly of 12,000 monks, all of whom were arhats whose corruption was at an end, who were free from the confusion of desire, who had achieved their own goals, shattered the bonds of existence, and attained complete mental discipline. Their names were Jtakauinya, Makyapa, Uruvilvakyapa, Gaykyapa, Nadkyapa, Reputra, Mamorgalayana, Makaye with Macron Tya with Macron, Yana, Aniruddha, Kapia, Garvpati, Revata, Pilinda Vatsa, Bakula, Makauhila, Nanda, Sundarananda, Pra Mata Yaputra, Subshti, Nanda, and Rila. All of them were great arhats, known to the assembly. There were in addition 2,000 others, both those who had more to learn and those who did not. The nun Maprajpat was there, together with her 6,000 attendants, and also the nun Yaradha, Rila's mother, together with her attendants. There were also 80,000 Bodhisattvas Sattvas, all of whom were irreversible from highest, complete enlightenment, Anutta Samyak Sabodhi. They had obtained the Dras, were established in eloquence, and had turned the irreversible wheel of the Dharma. Each had paid homage to countless hundreds of thousands of Buddhas, planted roots of merit in their presence, and had always been praised by those Buddhas. They had also cultivated compassion within themselves, skillfully caused others to enter the wisdom of a Buddha, obtained great wisdom, and reached the other shore. All of them were famous throughout countless worlds and had saved innumerable hundreds of thousands of sentient beings. They were Major, Avalo, Kaitesvara, Masthmapapta, Natyodiukta, Anikipta Dura, Ratnani, Bhajaja, Pradnara, Ratnakandra, Kandra Prabha, Prakandra, Mavikraman, Anantavikraman, Trailokya Vikrama, Bhadrapla, Maitreya, Ratankara, and Sasthava. There were altogether 80,000 such Bodhisattvas. 3. 1c. 2 am. The Lotus Sutra. At that time Sakra, king of the Devas, was also there, attended by 20,000 Devaputras. Kandra, Samantaganda, and Ratnaprabha, and the great Devas of the four quarters were there, together with a retinue of 10,000 Devaputras. The Devaputras Svara and Mahisvara were there, attended by 30,000 Devaputras. Brahma, the Lord of the Sar world, as well as the great Brahma Sikhin and the great Brahma Jyotiprabha were there, together with a retinue of 12,000 Devaputras. The eight Nga kings, namely, Nanda, Upananda, Zgara, Vsukin, Takeka, Anavatapta, Manasvin, and Utpalaka, were also there, each of them surrounded by several hundreds of thousands of attendants. There were four kings of the Kinaras whose names were Dharma, Su, Dharma, Madurma, and Durmedhara, and each had several hundreds of thousands of attendants. The four kings of the Gandharvas were there. They were Manojna, Manojnasvara, Madhura, and Madhurasvara, each of them also with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. There, too, were four kings of the Asuras, called Bain, Karaskanda, Vemakaitra, and Rayu, each with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. Matejas, Makya, Mapra, and Mahadipapta, the four kings of the Gurus, were there, together with several hundreds of thousands of attendants. Finally, King Ajatasatru, Veda's son, was also there with several hundreds of thousands of his attendants. Each of them, after having bowed at the Buddha's feet, withdrew and sat to one side. At that time the Bhagavat was respectfully surrounded by the fourfold assembly, i.e., monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, paid homage, honored, and praised. He then taught the Bodhisattvas the Mahayana Sutra called Immeasurable Meanings, Manurdi, the instruction for the Bodhisattvas, and the treasured law of the Buddhas. After having taught this sutra, the Buddha sat cross-legged, entered the Samai called the abode of immeasurable meanings, Anantaniyadisarprashana, and remained unmoving in both body and mind. Mdrava and great Mdrava Oas, Majaka, and great Majaka Oas then fell like rain from the sky, scattering upon the Buddha and all of his attendants, and the whole Buddha world quaked in 6 ways. At that time, that whole assembly of such humans and non-humans, as monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, the Devas, Ngas, Yakas, Gandharvas, Asuras, Gurus, Kinaras, Mauragas, kings, and noble emperors, having 2b. Chapter I. Experienced something unprecedented, were led with joy, and with their palms pressed together they gazed attentively at the Buddha. Then the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows. It illuminated all the 18,000 worlds in the east, down as far as the lowest hell, of Psi, and up as high as the Ekaniha heaven. All the sentient beings in those worlds living in the 6 transmigratory states became visible from this world. The Buddhas in those worlds were also seen, and the Dharma they were teaching could be heard. The monks, nuns, lay men, and lay women and those who had practiced and achieved the path were also to be seen, while the Bodhisattva Masattvas, of various background, causes and conditions, endowed in various degrees with the willingness to understand and having various appearances, were also seen practicing the Bodhisattva path. All of the Buddhas who had achieved parinirvana were seen, as well as their relic stupas made of the 7 precious treasures. At that moment it occurred to Bodhisattva Maitreya, the Bhagavatas now manifested the sign of great transcendent power. What could be the reason for this marvel? The Buddha, the Bhagavat, has now entered Samai. Whom should I ask about this wonderful marvel? Who would be able to answer my question? Then he thought further, this major, Prince of the Dharma, has closely attended and paid homage to innumerable Buddhas of the past. He must certainly have seen such a marvelous sign before. I should ask him now. At the same time it occurred to the monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, Devas, Ngas, Yakas, and others, now whom should we ask about the illumination and marvelous sign of this Buddha? Then Bodhisattva Maitreya, wanting to clear up his own confusion, and knowing the minds of the fourfold assembly of monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen and of the Ngas, Yakas, and other beings in that gathering, asked, Major, what is the reason for this marvelous sign, this great ray of light that illuminates the 18,000 worlds in the east and renders visible the adornments of all the Buddha worlds? Thereupon Bodhisattva Maitreya, wanting to elaborate the meaning of this further, spoke to Major in verse. O Major, why has the leader 5.2c. The Lotus Sutra emitted this great ray of light far and wide from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows, raining down Mdrava and Majaka oas, and gladdening the people with the fragrant winds of sandalwood. For this reason, the earth is completely adorned, and this world quakes in 6 ways, and the fourfold assembly is completely enraptured, delighted in body and mind at the experience of such an unprecedented marvel. From the depths of the Afsai hell up to the summit of existence, the ray of light from between his eyebrows illuminates the 18,000 worlds, which shimmer like gold. And, throughout all these worlds, the births and deaths of the living beings, of the 6 transmigratory states of existence, and the good and bad deeds, through which they have received good and bad consequences, are all to be seen from here. The Buddhas, the Sage Lord, Narendrasi, who teach the subtle and supreme sutra, are also seen, uttering soft sounds with their pure voices. They teach innumerable myriads of koyas of bodhisattvas, with their voices, deep and enticing, like the sounds of Brahma. They make the people eager to hear them. 6. Chapter I. In each world they teach the true Dharma. They illuminate the Buddha Dharma, and enlighten sentient beings by means of various explanations and innumerable illustrations to those who are suffering and are cast down by old age, illness, and death. They teach nirvana, to extinguish their sufferings. To those who have merit, have paid homage to the Buddhas, and seek the excellent Dharma, they teach the ideal of the Pratyeka Buddha. To those heirs of the Buddhas, who have practiced in various ways, and are seeking the utmost wisdom, they teach the pure path. O Major, abiding here, I see and hear thousands of koyas of things in this way. There are many such things. I shall now explain them in brief. In these worlds I see bodhisattvas, equal in number to the sons of the Ganges river, seeking the path of the Buddhas, according to their various situations. Some undertake the practice of giving gifts, joyfully giving gold, silver, coral, pearls, jewels, conch shells, agates, diamonds, servants, carts, and ornamented litters. They give these things joyfully, transferring the merit to the path of the Buddhas, wishing to obtain this vehicle, which is the highest in the three worlds. 7. 3 a.m. The Lotus Sutra. And praised by all the Buddhas. Other bodhisattvas give gifts, such as ornamented carts yoked with 4 horses, and furnished with railings, canopies, and decorated eaves. Moreover, I see bodhisattvas, who, seeking for the highest path, give gifts such as their bodies, hands, and feet, as well as their wives and children. Moreover, I see bodhisattvas, who are joyfully giving their heads, eyes, and bodies, while searching for the wisdom of the Buddhas. O Major, I see kings making pilgrimages to the Buddhas, asking about the highest path, abandoning their prosperous lands, palaces, subjects and harems, shaving their heads and beards, and wearing the robes of the Dharma. I see some bodhisattvas becoming monks, dwelling apart in tranquility, reciting the sutras with contentment. I also see bodhisattvas, persistent and courageous, going into remote mountains, and contemplating the Buddha path. I see some abandoning worldly desires, dwelling always in lonely places, practicing profound meditations, and obtaining the VE transcendent powers. I see bodhisattvas, meditating with palms pressed together, praising the kings of the Dharma, with thousands of myriads of verses. I also see bodhisattvas. 8. Chapter I. Profound in wisdom and RM in resolution. Asking the Buddha's questions, listening carefully and retaining everything. Furthermore, I see heirs of the Buddhas, endowed with concentration and wisdom, teaching the Dharma by innumerable illustrations, for the benefit of living beings, leading and inspiring the bodhisattvas, by joyously teaching the Dharma, destroying Ra and his minions, and beating the drums of the Dharma. I also see bodhisattvas, who are tranquil and silent in ease, and never exult, even in the homage paid by Devas and Ngas. I see bodhisattvas, dwelling in forests, radiating light, alleviating the suffering of beings in the hells, and causing them to enter the Buddha path. I also see heirs of the Buddhas, who have never fallen asleep, and are constantly wandering in forests, in search of the Buddha path. I see some who are pure like jewels, endowed with integrity, and faultless in behavior, in search of the Buddha path. Furthermore, I see heirs of the Buddhas, in search of the Buddha path, who have the power of perseverance, and patiently endure those of excessive pride, who abuse them verbally and physically. I see bodhisattvas, who have been searching for the Buddha path. 9. 3b. The Lotus Sutra. For thousands of myriads of kois of years, and who have renounced idlers and foolish companions, and approached the wise, having single-mindedly rid themselves of inner confusion. They are meditating in mountain forests. I also see bodhisattvas seeking for the highest path, who are giving food and drink, and 100 kinds of medicine, to the Buddha and the Sangha. They give superb garments and clothing, worth thousands of myriads, and priceless robes, to the Buddha and the Sangha. They give thousands of myriads of kois, of treasured monasteries made of sandalwood, and various kinds of excellent bedding. To the Buddha and the Sangha, they give clean garden groves, full of flowers and fruits, fountains and bathing pools. To the Buddha and the Sangha, thus they give such various excellent things, with joy and vigor, seeking the supreme path. There are also bodhisattvas, who are teaching innumerable sentient beings the Dharma of tranquility, in various ways. Furthermore, I see bodhisattvas, who have perceived the essential character of all Dharma's phenomena, to be without duality, just like empty space. I also see heirs of the Buddhas, who are seeking the highest path. 10. Chapter I. Through this subtle wisdom, their minds free of attachment. O Major, there are bodhisattvas, who pay homage to the relics, auras, of the Buddhas, after their parinirvanas. I also see heirs of the Buddhas, who have built stupas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, with which to decorate the Buddha worlds. These jeweled stupas are magnificent, 5,000 yojanas in height and 2,000 yojanas in both length and width. On each of these stupas are 1,000 banners, ags, and canopies, and jeweled bells ringing harmoniously. And devas, ngas, humans, and non-humans, constantly give offerings of perfume, oas, and music to them. O Major, the heirs of the Buddhas have decorated the stupas in order to pay homage to the relics. These worlds have been spontaneously made as extraordinarily beautiful as the king of the heavenly trees, when his oas bloom. Because the Buddha has emitted this ray of light, I and those with me in the assembly can see these worlds of marvelous and varied beauty. The wisdom and transcendent powers of all the Buddhas are extraordinary. By emitting a single ray of light, he has illuminated innumerable lands. Seeing this, we attain. 11. 3c. The Lotus Sutra, that which we have not met with before. O Major, heir of the Buddhas, we entreat you to rid us of our confusion. The fourfold assembly is joyfully looking up at you and me. Why did the Bhagavat emit this ray of light? O heir of the Buddhas, now answer. Resolve our confusion and gladden us. Why is he emitting this ray of light? Will the Buddha teach us the true Dharma that he obtained while he sat on the terrace of enlightenment, Bodhima? Will he predict enlightenment to us? It is not for a trying reason that all the Buddha lands, ornamented with various jewels, and all the Buddhas have been made visible. O Major, you should know that the fourfold assembly, Ngas, and Devas, look forward to hearing what you shall reveal. Thereupon Major spoke to Bodhisattva Masattva Maitreya and the other worthy beings, O sons of a virtuous family. I am very sure that the Buddha, the Bhagavat, will now teach the great Dharma, rain down the great Dharma, blow the conch of the great Dharma, beat the drum of the great Dharma, and reveal the meaning of the great Dharma. O sons of a virtuous family, I have seen Buddhas in the past who have shown this marvel and have taught the great Dharma immediately after emitting a ray of light. Therefore, you should know that in the very same way, the Buddha has now emitted this light and has shown this marvel in order to cause all sentient beings to hear and understand the Dharma which in all the worlds is difficult to understand. O sons of a virtuous family! In the past, more than innumerable, incalculable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha called Chandrasraya Pradpa. 12. Chapter I. Atathgate, Arat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. He taught the true Dharma that was good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. It was profound in meaning, elegant in speech, and endowed with the character of the pure path of discipline and integrity. To those seeking for the Aveka vehicle he taught the Dharma with respect to the Four Noble Truths, causing them to overcome birth, old age, illness, and death and to attain nirvana. He taught the Dharma with respect to dependent origination to the Pratyekabuddhas, and to the Bodhisattvas he taught the Dharma with respect to the six perfections, pramitas, causing them to attain highest, complete enlightenment and perfect all-knowledge. Savajaya with Macron Ta with Macron. Then there was another Buddha named Chandrasraya Pradpa, and after him another Buddha also named Chandrasraya Pradpa. And so in this way, 20,000 Buddhas all had the same name Chandrasraya Pradpa. They also had the same family name Bharadvaja. O Maitreya! You should know that these Buddhas, beginning from the RST up to the last, all had the same name Chandrasraya Pradpa, endowed with the 10 epithets. The Dharma that they taught was good in the beginning, the middle, and the end. The last Buddha fathered 8 princes before he renounced household life. The RST was called Mati, the second Sumati, the third Anantamati, the fourth Ratamati, the FTH was called Vyamati, the sixth Vimati Samugtin, the seventh Gomati, and the 8th was called Dharmamati. These 8 princes were endowed with dignity and power, and each of them ruled over 4 great continents. Having heard that their father had renounced household life and obtained highest, complete enlightenment, all of them abandoned their kingdoms and also renounced household life. Each caused the spirit of the Mahayana to arise within him, practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity, and became an expounder of the Dharma. They all planted roots of good merit under many thousands of myriads of Buddhas. At that time, the Buddha Chandrasraya Pradpa taught the Mahayana Sutra called Immeasurable Meanings, the instruction for the Bodhisattvas, and treasured law of the Buddhas. Having taught this sutra, he sat down. 13. 4 a.m. The Lotus Sutra. Cross-legged, undisturbed in body and mind among the great assembly and entered the Samai called the abode of immeasurable meanings. Then Mdrava and great Mdrava-oas, Majaka and great Majaka-oas fell like rain from the sky, scattering over the Buddha and all of his attendants. And the whole Buddha world quaked in 6 ways. At that time all in that assembly of humans and non-humans, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, Deva-s, Nga-s, Yaka-s, Gandharva-s, Asura-s, Garua-s, Ki, Nara-s, Mauraga-s, kings, and noble emperors, having experienced such an unprecedented marvel, were led with joy and pressing their palms together. They gazed attentively at the Buddha. Then the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows which completely illuminated all the 18,000 worlds in the east, in the same way that all of these Buddha worlds are visible now. O Maitreya! You should know that at that time there were 20 kois of bodhisattvas in the assembly who wanted to hear the Dharma. All of these bodhisattvas, having seen all the Buddha worlds completely illuminated by this ray of light, were struck with wonder and wanted to know why it was emitted. A bodhisattva named Viraprabha was there with his 800 disciples. At that time the Buddha Chandrasraya Pradpa, having emerged from Samai, remained sitting for 60 intermediate kalpas and revealed to Bodhi Sattva Viraprabha the Mahayana Sutra called Sadharmapwaka, the White Lotus of the Marvelous Law, hereafter Lotus Sutra, which was the instruction for bodhisattvas and the treasured law of the Buddhas. The assembly also sat there undisturbed in body and mind listening to the Buddha's exposition. For 60 intermediate kalpas, as if only a single mealtime had passed. During that time not a single person among them experienced fatigue of body or mind. Having taught this sutra for 60 intermediate kalpas, the Buddha Chandra Sraya Pradpa made this proclamation to the assembly of Brahmas, Mras, Aramaras, Brahmins, Devas, humans, and Asuras, saying, on this day during the middle watch of the night, the Tathagata will enter nirvana without residue. Then the Buddha Chandrasraya Pradpa gave this prediction to a bodhi sattva called Agabha. Addressing the monks, he said, 14. 4 am. 4b. Chapter I. This bodhisattva Agabha will become the next Buddha after me. He will be called Vimalgantra, a Tathagata, Arat, completely enlightened. The Buddha, after having made this prediction, entered nirvana without residue during the middle of the night. After the Buddha passed into extinction, Bodhisattva Viraprabha, having preserved the Lotus Sutra, taught it to humans for the full period of 80 intermediate kalpas. This Bodhisattva Viraprabha was made the teacher for the Buddha Chandrasraya Pradpa's 8 princes. Viraprabha led and inspired them and caused them to be in highest, complete enlightenment. After paying homage to innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kois of Buddhas, all these princes attained the path of the Buddhas. The last of these to become enlightened was named Dvakara. Among the 800 disciples of Bodhisattva Viraprabha there was a man named Yaskma who was attached to Prit. Even though he had repeatedly recited the sutras, he never became versed in them and forgot the greater part. That is why he was called Yaskma, fame seeker. But because he had also planted various roots of good merit, he was able to meet innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kois of Buddhas, whom he rendered homage to, honored, revered, and praised. O Maitreya! You should know that Bodhisattva Viraprabha at that time was none other than myself, and Bodhisattva Yaskma was none other than you. The marvel we see here is exactly the same as the previous one. Therefore I am certain that today the Tathagata will teach the Mahayana Sutra called the Lotus Sutra, the instruction for Bodhisattvas and treasured law of the Buddhas. Thereupon Major, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke to the great assembly in verse. I remember that in the past, innumerable incalculable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha, the best of humans, called Chandrasraya Pradpa. This Bhagavat taught the Dharma, leading and inspiring innumerable sentient beings. 15. The Lotus Sutra, and incalculable numbers of bodhisattvas, to attain the wisdom of the Buddhas. Before renouncing household life, The Buddha fathered 8 princes. Having seen the great sage renounce household life, they also followed him, and practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity. At that time the Buddha taught and extensively illuminated the Mahayana Sutra, called Immeasurable Meanings, to the Great Assembly. After having taught this sutra, the Buddha sat down cross-legged on the seat of Dharma and entered the Samai, called the Abode of Immeasurable Meanings. The heavenly Mdravaoas fell down like rain. The heavenly drums resounded spontaneously. All the Devas, Ngas, and Yakas paid homage to the best of humans. All of the Buddha worlds suddenly quaked greatly, and the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft between his eyebrows, and manifested various marvels. This ray of light illuminated the 18,000 Buddha worlds in the east, and revealed the conditions resulting from the karma of each sentient being. Through this light of the Buddha, all the Buddha worlds appeared as if they were decorated with various jewels, such as lapis lazuli or crystal. All the Devas, humans, Ngas, Yakas, Gandharvas, and Kinnaras. 16. 4c. Chapter I. Were each seen paying homage to the Buddhas. All the Tathagatas, who had spontaneously attained the path of the Buddhas, looked majestic and very beautiful, with bodies like golden mountains. Each Bhagavat appeared like a golden image in the midst of lapis lazuli, expounding the meaning of the profound Dharma to the great assembly. There were innumerable Avakas in each of the Buddha worlds, and they saw all the great assemblies. Because of the light of the Buddha, there were also monks living in mountain forests, who, through persistence, possessed purity of conduct, which they protected like a precious jewel. There were bodhisattvas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, practicing by giving, jna, perseverance, ti, and so on, i.e., the 6 perfections, who also became visible through the light of the Buddha. There were bodhisattvas, who, having entered deep samai, were tranquil and undisturbed in body and mind, and who were seen seeking for the highest path. There were also bodhisattvas, who, knowing the tranquil character of the Dharma, were seen teaching the Dharma, and seeking the path of the Buddhas, in each of the Buddha worlds. At that time the fourfold assembly, having seen the Buddha Chandrasraya Pradpa manifest these great transcendent powers, became delighted, and asked each other. 17. The Lotus Sutra. What the reason for this could be. The Noble One, revered by Devas and humans, then emerged from Samai and praised Bodhisattva Viraprabha, saying, "You are the eye of the world. You are believed in by all and possess the treasure house of the Dharma. You are the only one who can understand the Dharma that I have taught." The Bhagavat praised Viraprabha, delighting him, and taught this Lotus Sutra for the full period of 60 intermediate kalpas, without rising from his seat. This expounder of the Dharma, Viraprabha, firmly and completely preserved this most excellent Dharma that was taught by the Buddha. After having taught this Lotus Sutra, and having then gladdened the assembly, on that very day, the Buddha told the assembly of Devas and humans, "I have already taught you the meaning of the essential character of all Dharmas. Today I will enter Nirvana in the middle of the night. Exert yourselves attentively, and rid yourselves of negligence. The Buddhas are extremely hard to meet, and can be encountered only once. In Koyas of Kalpa S. All the sons of the Bhagavat, on hearing that the Buddha was to enter nirvana, became sad, thinking. 18. 5 a.m. Chapter I. Why will the Buddha enter nirvana so soon? The noble Lord, the King of the Dharma, consoled the innumerable beings saying, "Do not fear after I enter nirvana. This Bodhisattva Agabha has fully realized the true character of freedom from corruption, and after me he will become a Buddha named Vimalgantra, and then he will bring innumerable sentient beings to the path." And that night the Buddha entered nirvana. Like a RE that goes out when the wood is exhausted, his relics were distributed, and innumerable stupas were built. There were monks and nuns, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges river, who increased their efforts, and sought for the highest path. This expounder of the Dharma, Viraprabha, possessed of the treasure house of the Buddha, extensively proclaimed the Lotus Sutra. For 80 intermediate kalpas, all of the 8 princes, led and inspired by Viraprabha, became RMLY established in the highest path, and met innumerable Buddhas. After having paid homage to the Buddhas, and following them in their practice of the great path, they all in turn received their predictions, becoming Buddhas in succession. The last Buddha, the highest of Devas, was called Dvakara, and, as the leader of all the sages. 19. 5b. The Lotus Sutra had brought innumerable sentient beings to the path. This expounder of the Dharma, Viraprabha, had one disciple who was lazy and attached to fame and fortune. This disciple ceaselessly sought these things, and amused himself from house to house. He abandoned recitation of the sutras, and, forgetting them, never became versed in them. For this very reason he was named Yuskma. But since he had also performed many good deeds, he was able to meet innumerable Buddhas. He paid homage to all these Buddhas, and having practiced the great path after them, acquired all the 6 perfections and now meets the Lion of the Kyas. He shall subsequently become a Buddha called Maitreya, who will extensively bring innumerable sentient beings to the path. After the parinirva of that Buddha Kandrasraya Pradpa, the lazy one was none other than you, and the expounder of the Dharma, Viraprabha, was no one but myself. When I saw the Buddha Dvakara, he also revealed this marvel of light. That is why I know that this Buddha will now teach the Lotus Sutra. This sign is just like the previous marvel. It is the skillful means of all the Buddhas. The Buddha has now emitted this ray of light, in order to reveal the essential character of Dharma S. Now it should be clear to everyone. Wait attentively with palms pressed together. 20. Chapter I. Having reigned the Dharma, the Buddha will satisfy those seeking the path. If there is anyone seeking the 3 vehicles who still has any doubts, the Buddha will completely remove them, extinguishing them with none left over. 21. Chapter 2. Skillful means. At that time the Bhagavat arose tranquilly with insight out of Samaya and addressed Raputra, profound and immeasurable is the wisdom of the Buddhas. The gate to their wisdom is hard to enter and difficult to understand. none of the Avaka and Pratyeka Buddha may be capable of understanding it. Why is this? The Buddhas have closely attended innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kois of other Buddhas. They have exhaustively carried out practices with courage and persistence under uncountable numbers of Buddhas, their names becoming universally renowned. They have perfected this profound and unprecedented Dharma, and their intention in adapting their explanations to what is appropriate is difficult to understand. O Raputra! After attaining Buddhahood, I expounded the teaching extensively with various explanations and illustrations, and with skillful means, led sentient beings to rid themselves of their attachments. Why is this? Because all the Tathagatas have attained perfect mastery of skillful means, wisdom, and insight. O Raputra! The wisdom and insight of the Tathagatas is extensive, profound, immeasurable, and unhindered. They are possessed of power, fearlessness, meditation, liberation, and samai that is profound and endless. They have completely attained this unprecedented Dharma. O Raputra! The Tathagatas can, through various methods, skillfully illuminate the Dharma with gentle speech and gladden the hearts of the assemblies. O Raputra! To put it briefly, the Buddhas have attained this immeasurable, limitless, and unprecedented Dharma. Enough, O Raputra, I will speak no further. Why is this? Because the Dharma that the Buddhas have attained is foremost, unique, and difficult to understand. No one but the Buddhas can completely know the real aspects of all Dharmas, that is to say, their character, nature, substance, potential, function, cause, condition, result, effect, and essential unity. 23. 5c. The Lotus Sutra. 24. Thereupon the Bhagavat spoke these verses to explain this meaning. Again, the heroes of the world are inconceivable. Neither devas, humans, nor any other sentient beings are able to comprehend them. No one is able to discern the power, fearlessness, liberation, samai, and other attributes of the Buddhas. Formerly, under innumerable Buddhas, they have fully accomplished their practices, and the Dharma, which is profound and excellent, hard to perceive and difficult to understand. Having pursued these practices for innumerable kois of kalpas, I attained the result on the terrace of enlightenment, and understood completely. I and the Buddhas of the 10 directions know such matters, such as the great results and rewards, and the meaning of various aspects and characteristics. It is impossible to explain this Dharma. The powers of speech fail. No other sentient being is able to understand it, except for those bodhisattvas who, in their belief, are willing to understand. Even the multitude of the Buddha's disciples, who have formerly paid homage to all the Buddhas, who have put an end to all their corruption, and are bearing their last bodies, are not able to understand it. Even if this whole world were led with those such as Raputra, and they tried together to comprehend it, they still would not be able to understand completely. 6 am. The wisdom of the Buddhas. Again, even if the worlds of the 10 directions were led with such disciples as Raputra, and they tried together to comprehend it, they still would not be able to completely understand. And even if the worlds of the 10 directions were LLED with Pratyekabuddhas, as numerous as bamboo trees in a grove, who had keen wisdom, and were bearing their last bodies, free from corruption, even if they tried together single-mindedly, for innumerable kalpas, to comprehend the wisdom of the Buddhas. Still they would not understand it in the least, even if the worlds of the 10 directions were packed as thick as stalks of rice, flax, bamboo, and reeds. With bodhisattvas, recent aspirants to enlightenment, who had paid homage to innumerable Buddhas, though they fully understood the meaning, and could expound the Dharma, even with this subtle wisdom, if they tried together single-mindedly to comprehend, for as many kalpas as the sands of the Ganges River, they still would not be able to know the wisdom of the Buddhas, even if bodhisattvas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, who had reached the stage of non-retrogression, tried together single-mindedly to comprehend it. Still they would not be able to know. The Buddha, still speaking to Raputra, said. Chapter 2. 25. The Lotus Sutra. 26. I have already attained the profound and subtle Dharma, that is incorruptible, and beyond all comprehension. Only I and the Buddhas of the 10 directions know this. O Raputra, you should know that the words of the Buddhas are never inconsistent. You should trust fully in the Dharma that the Buddha expounds. The Dharma of the Bhagavat has been in existence for a long time. I will now dignitely expound the truth. I address myself to the Avakas, and those seeking the Pratyekabuddha vehicle. It was I who caused them to become free from the bondage of suffering, and to attain nirvana. I have revealed the teaching of the 3 vehicles, with the power of the skillful means of the Buddhas, so as to free the sentient beings from their various human attachments. At that time it occurred to the great assembly of 1200 A with Macron. Vakas are ots free from corruption, beginning with Chtakauinya, and the other monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen who had set out to become A with Macron. Vakas and Pratyekabuddhas, why has the Bhagavat just now so earnestly praised skillful means? For what reason has he declared that the Dharma that the Buddhas have attained is very profound and difficult to understand? Why has he said that their intention in adapting their teaching to what is appropriate is so difficult to comprehend that all the Avakas and Pratyekabuddhas are not able to understand it? As long as the Buddha taught the meaning of the single liberation, we thought we had attained that Dharma and achieved nirvana. But now we do not understand what he means. At that time Raputra, aware of the confusion of the fourfold asm, bliss and himself also feeling confused, addressed the Buddha saying, O Bhagavat, for what reason and on what grounds have you so earnestly praised 6b. the unique skillful means of the Buddhas and the profound and subtle Dharma that is difficult to understand? Never before have I heard such a thing from the Buddha. Now Bhagavat, I entreat you to explain this because the four-fold assemblies are confused. O Bhagavat, why have you so earnestly praised the Dharma that is profound, subtle, and difficult to understand? Thereupon Raputra, wanting to further explain what he meant, spoke these verses. O great seer, son of wisdom, now, after a long time, you have taught this Dharma, saying, I have attained the inconceivable Dharma. That is to say, power, fearlessness, samai, meditation, and liberation. No one has ever questioned the Dharma that I attained on the terrace of enlightenment. No one has ever questioned my intentions, so difficult to conceive, without being asked. You explained it by yourself, and praised the path you have practiced, saying, the wisdom the Buddhas have attained is extremely subtle. The arhats free from corruption, and those seeking nirvana, have all fallen into confusion. Why has the Buddha said this? Those seeking to become pratyekabuddhas, monks, nuns, devas, ngas, yakas, gandharvas, and the others, glanced at each other in confusion, and looking toward the best of humans asked, O Buddha, we entreat you to explain why this is so. Chapter 2. 27. The Lotus Sutra. 28. The Buddha has said that I am the foremost among the avakas, yet now I am confused about my own knowledge and unable to understand. Is it the ultimate Dharma? Is it a path to be practiced? The sons born from the mouths of the Buddhas stand waiting with palms pressed together, looking at the Buddha. I entreat you to proclaim the truth, speaking in the nest voice. The devas, ngas, and others, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, as many as 80,000 bodhisattvas, who are seeking Buddhahood, and noble emperors, who have come from myriads of koyas of countries, are all standing respectfully with palms pressed together, asking how to accomplish the path. Then the Buddha addressed Ruputra, saying, enough, enough. Speak no more. If I explained this matter, the devas and humans in all the worlds would be astounded. Then Ruputra again addressed the Buddha, O Bhagavat, please explain it. I entreat you to explain it, because in this assembly there are innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of koyas of incalculable sentient beings, sharp in faculties and possessed of wisdom, who have previously encountered the Buddhas. When they hear the teaching of the Buddha they will trust, believe, and accept it. Thereupon Ruputra spoke in verse to explain this again. O King of the Dharma, the best of humans, I entreat you to explain it. Please explain it without hesitation. In this assembly there are innumerable sentient beings who will trust and accept it. Then the Buddha again tried to dissuade Ruputra, saying, if I explain 6c. it, the devas, humans, and asuras in all the worlds will be astounded, and arrogant monks will certainly go to their downfall. At that time the Bhagavat again spoke in verse. Enough, enough. Speak no more. The Dharma that I have attained is excellent and incomprehensible. Though the arrogant hear it, they will never accept it. And again Ruputra addressed the Buddha, saying, O Bhagavat, please explain it. Please explain it. In this assembly there are people like me and others, numbering into the hundreds of thousands of myriads of koyas of beings, who have been led and inspired by the Buddhas in their former tenses. Such people will certainly trust, believe, and accept it. And they will benefit and receive solace from it for a very long time. Thereupon Ruputra spoke these verses to elaborate on what he meant. O best of humans, please teach the ultimate Dharma. I am the eldest son of the Buddha. Please illuminate and explain it. Innumerable beings in this assembly will certainly trust and accept this Dharma. Because the Buddha in former existences led and inspired such people. All of them will attentively listen and accept, their palms pressed together, to the words of the Buddha. I entreat you to illuminate and explain it. For the assembly of 1200 people like me, and the others seeking Buddhahood, when they hear this Dharma, they will bring forth great joy. Then the Bhagavat spoke to Raputra, saying, You have now consistently asked me 3 times. How could I possibly not explain it to you? Chapter 2. 29. 7 a.m. The Lotus Sutra. 30. Therefore listen carefully and pay close attention. I will now illuminate and explain it. When he said this, 1,000 monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen in the assembly immediately got up from their seats, bowed to the Buddha, and left. What was the reason for this? Because the roots of error among this group had been deeply planted and they were arrogant, thinking they had attained what they had not attained and had realized what they had not realized. Because of such defects they did not stay. And the Bhagavat remained silent and did not stop them. Then the Buddha addressed Raputra, My assembly here is free of use. Less twigs and leaves, only the pure essence remains. O Raputra! Let the arrogant ones go. Listen carefully and I will explain it to you. Then Raputra replied, Indeed, O Bhagavat, I greatly desire to hear it. Then the Buddha addressed Raputra, Only very rarely do the Buddha Tathagatas teach such a true Dharma as this, as rarely as the Uambara. O blooms! O Raputra! Trust and accept what the Buddha teaches. My words are never false. O Raputra! The real intention of all the Buddhas in adapting their explanations to what is appropriate is difficult to understand. Why is this? Because I have expounded the teachings with innumerable skillful means, and various kinds of explanations and illustrations. Yet this Dharma is beyond reason and discernment. Only the Buddhas can understand it. Why is this? Because the Buddha Bhagavats appear in this world for one great purpose alone. O Raputra! Now I will explain why I said that the Buddha Bhagavats appear in this world for only one great purpose. The Buddha Bhagavat appear in this world to cause sentient beings to aspire toward purity and the wisdom and insight of the Buddhas. They appear in this world to manifest the wisdom and insight of the Buddhas to sentient beings. They appear in this world to cause sentient beings to attain the wisdom and insight of a Buddha's enlightenment. They appear in this world in order to cause sentient beings to enter the path of the wisdom and insight of a Buddha. O Raputra! For this one great reason alone the Buddhas have appeared in this world. The Buddha addressed Raputra, saying, The Buddha Tathagatas lead and inspire only bodhisattvas. All the acts of a Buddha are always for one purpose. The Buddhas manifest their wisdom and insight solely to inspire sentient beings to enlightenment. O Raputra! A Tathagata teaches sentient beings the Dharma only through the single Buddha vehicle. There is no other, neither a second nor a third. O Raputra! The true nature of all the Buddhas of the 10 directions is exactly like this. O Raputra! All the Buddhas of the past expounded the teachings for the Sakhe of sentient beings, using incalculable and innumerable skillful means and various explanations and illustrations. These teachings were all for the Sake of the single Buddha vehicle. All these sentient beings, hearing the Dharma from the Buddhas, nearly attained omniscience. O Raputra! All the future Buddhas who will appear in the world will expound the teachings for the sake of sentient beings, using incalculable and innumerable skillful means and various explanations and illustrations. These teachings will all be for the single Buddha vehicle. All sentient beings who hear this Dharma from these Buddhas will ultimately attain omniscience. O Raputra! All the Buddha Bhagavats of the present, in immeasure BLE hundreds of thousands of myriads of kois of Buddha worlds of the 10 directions, teach the Dharma to sentient beings using incalculable and innumerable skillful means with various explanations and illustrations to benay many of them and cause them to feel at peace. These Dharmas are all of the single Buddha vehicle. All the sentient beings who hear the Dharma from these Buddhas will ultimately attain omniscience. O Raputra! These Buddhas lead and inspire only bodhisattvas, because they want to teach sentient beings with the wisdom and insight of the Buddha. To enlighten sentient beings with the wisdom and insight of the Buddha, and to cause sentient beings to enter the path of the wisdom and insight of the Buddha. O Raputra! I too am now like this. Having understood the various desires and deep-rooted inclinations of sentient beings, I teach the Dharma according to their capacities through the power of skillful means, using IOU's explanations and illustrations. Chapter 2. 31. 7b. The Lotus Sutra. 32. O Raputra! I do this in order to cause them to attain the omniscience of the single Buddha vehicle. O Raputra! Since there is no second vehicle in the worlds of the 10 directions, how could there be a third? O Raputra! The Buddhas appear in the troubled world of the Vedil-ments, which are the delement of the Kalpa, the delement through desires, confusion, the delement of sentient beings, the delement of views, and the delement of lifespan. Therefore, O Raputra, in the period of the decadent Kalpa, because sentient beings are lthy, greedy, jealous, and develop roots of error, all the Buddhas illuminate the three vehicles with the power of skillful means in order to teach the single Buddha vehicle. O Raputra! If any of my disciples declare that they are arhats or pratyekabuddhas, and do not listen or comprehend that all the Buddha Tathagatas teach only the bodhisattvas, they are not disciples of the Buddhas, nor are they arhats or pratyekabuddhas. Again, O Raputra! If there are any monks or nuns who would declare that they have attained arhatship, that they are bearing their last bodies and are destined for complete nirvana, and yet who have not sought highest, complete enlightenment, they should be considered arrogant people. Why is this? Because there is no case in which a monk who has actually achieved arhatship does not believe in this Dharma, except after the Buddha has entered parinirvana and there is no Buddha present. What is the reason for this? Because after the parinirvana of the Buddha, it is hard to nd people who preserve, recite, and understand the meaning of the sutras like this. But if they should meet other Buddhas they will immediately understand this teaching. O Raputra! You should wholeheartedly accept and preserve the words of the Buddha. The words of the Buddha Tathagatas are never false. There are no other vehicles, only the single Buddha vehicle. Thereupon the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate the meaning of this verse, uttered these verses. In the fourfold assembly there were 1,000 monks and nuns who were excessively proud, laymen who were arrogant, and laywomen who were unaccepting. 7c. They did not see their own defects, being faulty in self-discipline, and clung to their shortcomings. These of little wisdom have already left. Through the virtuous dignity of the Buddha, the dregs of the assembly have departed, having little virtue. These people were incapable of accepting this Dharma, free of useless twigs and leaves. Only the pure essence of this assembly remains. O Raputra, listen carefully. All the Buddhas teach the Dharma that they have attained through the immeasurable power of skillful means. For the sake of sentient beings, completely knowing their intentions, their various ways of practice, their wishes and capacities, and the good and bad karma of their previous lives. The Buddha gladdens all sentient beings with the power of words and skillful means. Using examples and illustrations, the Buddha teaches by means of sutras, verses, stories of his past deeds, and of past events, miraculous tales, explanatory tales, allegories, poems, and exegeses. The Buddha teaches nirvana to those with dull faculties, who are satisfied with lowly aspirations, and attached to birth and death, who have not practiced the profound path, in the presence of innumerable Buddhas, and are confused by suffering, having devised this skillful means. Chapter 2. 33. 8 a.m. The Lotus Sutra. 34. I enable them to enter the wisdom of the Buddhas. But I have never said that all of you would attain the path of the Buddhas. I have never said this, because the occasion never arose. Now is precisely the right time for me to teach definitively the Mahayana. I apply these 9 kinds of teachings according to the capacities of sentient beings. I teach these sutras because they are the basis for entering the Mahayana. I teach the Mahayana Sutras to those heirs of the Buddhas who are pure in mind, mild, and receptive, have keen faculties, and who have practiced the profound path under immeasurable Buddhas. I predict that such people will attain the path of the Buddhas in their future lives, because they keep the Buddhas in mind with profound thoughts, and practice pure conduct. Hearing that they shall attain Buddhahood, they will be led with great joy, because a Buddha knows their intentions. He teaches the Mahayana those Avakas or Bodhisattvas who have heard even a single verse of the Dharma that I have taught will all become Buddhas. There can be no doubt about it. In the Buddha worlds of the 10 directions, there is only the Dharma of the single vehicle. Apart from the skillful means of the Buddhas, there is neither a second nor a third vehicle. A Buddha merely uses provisional words in order to lead sentient beings. All the Buddhas appear in the world to teach the wisdom of the Buddhas. Only this one thing is real. The other 2 are not true. In the end, a Buddha does not save sentient beings through an inferior vehicle. The Buddhas themselves abide in the Mahayana. The Dharma that they have attained is adorned with meditation, wisdom, and power, and through these they save the sentient beings. I would be ungenerous if I were to lead and inspire even a single person through an inferior vehicle, having attained the highest path. the universal Dharma of the Mahayana. This is simply not possible. If anyone takes refuge in the Buddha, the Tathagata will not deceive him. A Tathagata has neither stinginess nor jealousy, and has detached himself from the evils of the phenomenal world. That is why the Buddhas of the 10 directions are the only ones who have no fear, having a body adorned with the marks of a Buddha, emitting a ray of light that illuminates the worlds, and revered by immeasurable sentient beings. I teach the signs of the true aspects of the phenomenal world. O Raputra, you should now know. Chapter 2. 35. 8b. The Lotus Sutra. 36. That originally I made a vow to make all sentient beings my equal, without any difference. Now I have already fulfilled this vow that I made in the past. I will lead and inspire all sentient beings, and cause them to enter the path of the Buddhas. If I met sentient beings, and taught them till the end the path of the Buddhas, those with little understanding would be confused and perplexed, and would not accept the teaching. I know that these sentient beings have never cultivated the roots of good merit. They are attached to the desires of the VE senses, disordered by delusion and passion, and have fallen into the 3 troubled states of being. Because of these desires, they are wandering through the 6 transmigratory states, tormented by every kind of suffering. They are continually being born as tiny embryos, in one world after another. These people of few qualities and little merit are afflicted by various sufferings. They enter into the jungle of 62 false views, such as this exists or this does not exist. They are so RMLY and deeply attached to false teachings that they cannot get rid of them. They are arrogant, proud, deceitful, and dishonest. They have heard neither the names nor the true Dharma of the Buddhas for thousands of myriads of kois of kalpas. Such people are difficult to save. That is why, O Raputra, I devised the method of teaching the way to extinguish all suffering through nirvana. Even though I taught nirvana, it is not the true extinction. Every existing thing from the very beginning has always had the mark of quiescence. The heirs of the Buddhas who practice this path will thereafter become Buddhas in the future. With the power of skillful means, I have presented the teachings of the 3 vehicles. Yet all of the Bhagavats teach the path of the single vehicle. This great assembly should now rid itself of confusion. The words of the Buddhas are not inconsistent. There is only the single vehicle. There is no other. In the past innumerable kalpas, there appeared immeasurable and incalculable Buddhas, hundreds of thousands of myriads of kois in number, who have attained parinirvana. All the Bhagavats taught the characteristics of all dharmas, with the power of innumerable skillful means, using various examples and illustrations. All these Bhagavats taught the Dharma of the single vehicle, led and inspired immeasurable sentient beings, and enabled them to enter the path of the Buddhas, understanding the deepest desires of the entire world, of the devas, humans, and other beings. The great sage Lord has illuminated the highest meaning, with diverse skillful means, all those sentient beings who encountered and heard the teaching. Chapter 2. 37. 8c. The Lotus Sutra. 38. Of the Buddhas of the past. and who accumulated various merits. Through acts of giving, gna, integrity, la, perseverance, ti, diligence, vriya, meditation, dina, and wisdom, praj, i.e., the six perfections, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. And after the parinirva of the Buddhas, those sentient beings with well-governed minds have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. After the Buddhas attained parinirva, all those who paid homage to the relics, who made myriads of kois of stupas, extensively and beautifully adorned with gold, silver, crystal, mother of pearl, agate, ruby, lapis lazuli, and pearl. Those who made rock stupas, stupas out of sandal, aloe, deodar, and other woods, as well as brick, tile, mud, and other materials. All those who made Buddha stupas out of piles of earth in desolate places, and even children in play, who made Buddha stupas out of heaps of sand. All such people have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. And all those who made images of the Buddhas, carved with their extraordinary marks, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. All those who made Buddha images out of the seven treasures, decorated with brass, copper, pewter, lead, tin, iron, wood, mud, glue, lacquer, and cloth, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. All those who made or had others make Buddha images, painted with the 100 embellishing marks of merit, 9 am, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. This even includes children in play, who have drawn a Buddha image with a blade of grass or a twig, brush or a nail. Such people, having gradually accumulated merit and perfected great compassion, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas, leading and inspiring the Bodhisattvas. They save countless sentient beings. All those who paid homage to stupas, sculpted or painted images, honoring them with urns, perfumes, banners, and canopies. Those who paid homage with all kinds of sweet music, with drums, horns, conchs, pipes, utés, lutes, harps, mandolins, gongs, and cymbals. Those who joyfully praised the qualities of the Buddhas, with various songs or even with a single low-pitched sound, have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. Those who, even with distracted minds, have offered a single ode to a painted image, will in time see innumerable Buddhas. Or those who have done obeisance to images, or merely pressed their palms together, or raised a single hand, or nodded their heads, will in due time see immeasurable Buddhas. They will attain the highest path, and extensively save innumerable sentient beings. They will enter nirvana without residue, just as a RE goes out after its wood is exhausted. Those who, even with distracted minds, entered a stupa compound, and chanted but once, homage to the Buddha. Chapter 2. 39. The Lotus Sutra. 40. Have certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. Anyone who heard this teaching, either in the presence of a past Buddha, or after their parinirva, has certainly attained the path of the Buddhas. The future Bhagavats, Tathagatas, immeasurable in number, will teach the Dharma with skillful means. All the Tathagatas will save sentient beings with immeasurable skillful means, causing them to enter the wisdom of the Buddhas, that is free from corruption. Of those hearing this Dharma, there will be no one who will not become a Buddha. The original vow of the Buddhas was to cause all sentient beings to universally attain the very same Buddha path that I have practiced. Even though the Buddhas of the future will teach hundreds of thousands of kois of innumerable paths to the Dharma, their teachings will actually be for the sake of the single vehicle. All the Buddhas, the best of humans, know that all Dharmas are ever without substance, and that the Buddha seeds germinate through dependent origination. That is why they will teach the single vehicle, having realized on the terrace of enlightenment that the state of the Dharma is permanent and unchangeable in this world. The leaders will teach with skillful means. The present Buddhas of the 10 directions, 9b, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, revered by devas and humans, appear in the world and teach this Dharma to make sentient beings feel at peace. They know the utmost tranquility, and although they teach various paths with the power of skillful means, their teachings are actually for the Buddha vehicle. Knowing the character of sentient beings, their deep intentions, past acts, wishes, persistence, and strength, their keen or dull faculties, the Buddhas teach with skillful means, using various explanations, illustrations, and words, in accordance with the capacities of sentient beings. Now I too reveal the path of the Buddhas, through various paths to the Dharma, to make sentient beings feel at peace. Through the power of my wisdom, I know the dispositions and desires of sentient beings, and explain various teachings with skillful means, enabling them all to obtain joy. O Raputra, you should know that through the Buddha I see beings wandering in the 6 states of existence, who are poor, deprived of merit and wisdom, who are entering into the bitter path of birth and death, and are suffering repeatedly and without end. They are deeply attached to the desires of the VE senses, just as yaks are attached to their tails. Obstructed by greed, they are blind and cannot see. They do not seek the Buddha who has great power, nor the Dharma that cuts off suffering. Deeply immersed in false views, they try to eliminate suffering through suffering. Chapter 2. 41. 9c. The Lotus Sutra. 42. I feel great compassion for such sentient beings, sitting on the terrace of enlightenment for the rest time, looking at the Bodhi tree, and walking about. During those 21 days, I was thinking thus: the wisdom I have attained is subtle and supreme, but the faculties of sentient beings are dull. They are attached to pleasures and blinded by delusion. How can I save such beings? Then Brahma and his Devaputra Sakra, the world protectors of the 4 quarters, Mahisvara and the other Devas, together with a retinue of hundreds of thousands of myriads of attendants, paid their respects with palms pressed together, and begged me to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then I thought, if I only praise the Buddha vehicles, those beings who are submerged in suffering will not believe this Dharma. Because they reject and do not believe the Dharma, they will fall into the 3 troubled states of being. I would rather not teach the Dharma, and instead immediately enter nirvana. Then I thought of the power of skillful means, practiced by past Buddhas. This path that I have attained should now also be taught as the 3 vehicles. When I thought this, the Buddhas of the 10 directions appeared, and with beautiful voices praised me, saying, O Kyamuni! Splendid! O Supreme Leader! You have attained the highest Dharma, and yet still use the power of skillful means, following all the other Buddhas. We too have attained the best and utmost Dharma, and with discretion have explained the three vehicles for the sake of sentient beings. Those with little wisdom seek inferior teachings, and do not believe that they will become Buddhas. That is why we use skillful means, and with discretion teach of various results. Although we teach the three vehicles, it is just for the instruction of the Bodhisattvas. O Raputra! You should know that when I heard this profound and beautiful roar of the noble lions, I chanted with joy, homage to the Buddhas. And I thought, since I have been born in this stilled world, I will follow the other Buddhas, and expound what they have expounded. After contemplating this, I set out for Vras. All Dharmas have the tranquil character of the Dharma. This could not be expressed in words. So I taught the VE monks. Chapter 2. 43. 10 a.m. The Lotus Sutra. 44. Through the power of skillful means. This I named, turning the wheel of the Dharma. And immediately the word nirvana appeared in it. And the different designations for it, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. From a great many kalpas ago, I have always taught like this. I have praised and illuminated the teaching of nirvana, saying that it ends the sufferings of birth and death. O Raputra! You should know that I see immeasurable thousands of myriads of kois of the Buddhas as who, having set out for the Buddha path, and heard the Dharma explained with skillful means, have respectfully come before the Buddha. Then I thought, the reason why the Tathagatas appear is to explain the wisdom of the Buddhas. Now is precisely the right time for this. O Raputra! You should know that those who have dull faculties and little wisdom, and those who are attached to mere signs and are arrogant cannot accept this teaching. Now I am happy and fearless. Having openly set aside skillful means, I will teach only the highest path to all the Bodhisattvas. Having heard this teaching, the Bodhisattvas and 1200 arhats, freeing themselves from the web of doubt, will all become Buddhas, just as the Buddhas in the three periods of the past, present, and future teach the true nature of the Dharma. Now I too will expound the Dharma that is beyond conception. All the Buddhas appear in worlds far away, and are difficult to meet. Even if they appear in this world, it is difficult to hear their teaching. Even in immeasurable, innumerable kalpas, it is difficult to hear this Dharma. And those who are able to hear this Dharma are also hard to nd. They are just like the Uambara Oa, which appears only once in a very long while, and, beloved by all, is considered a wonder among devas and humans. Those who, hearing this teaching, happily praise the Buddhas, by uttering even a single word, have already paid homage to all Buddhas of the three periods. Such people are even more extraordinary than the Uambara Oa. All of you have no doubts. I, the King of the Dharma, now proclaim to the great assembly. I lead and inspire the Bodhisattvas only with the path of the single vehicle. I am here without disciples. O Raputra and all of you, the Avakas and Bodhisattvas should know. Chapter 2. 45. 10b. The Lotus Sutra. 46. That this true Dharma is the hidden essence of all the Buddhas. In the troubled worlds of the VE kinds of development, sentient beings are only attached to various desires, and ultimately do not seek the path of the Buddhas. In the future the impure will hear the Buddha teach the single vehicle, but they will be confused and will not accept it. They will reject the Dharma, and fall into the troubled states of being. To those who are modest and pure, and seek the path of the Buddhas, I will praise extensively the path of the single vehicle. O Raputra, you should know that the Dharma of all the Buddhas is like this. They teach the Dharma with myriads of choice of skillful means, according to the capacities of sentient beings. The inexperienced cannot understand this. You have come to know with certainty the skillful means of the Buddhas, the teachers of the world, that are expounded in accordance with people's capacities. All of you have no further doubts. Let great joy arise in your hearts, and know that you will all become Buddhas. Chapter 3. A Parable. Thereupon Raputra stood up ecstatic and joyful, pressed his palms together, and, gazing at the Buddha, the Bhagavat, said, Now, hearing the words of this Dharma from the Bhagavat, my heart is full of joy, for I have experienced something unprecedented. What is the reason for this? In the past, when I heard this Dharma from the Buddha and saw the Bodhisattvas receive their predictions, I was not included. I grieved because I thought I had been deprived of the immeasurable wisdom and insight of the Tathagata. O Bhagavat, while I was dwelling alone under forest trees, whether sitting or walking, I was constantly thinking this, since we have also real is the true nature of the Dharma, why has the Tathagata tried to save us with the teachings of the inferior vehicle? The fault is ours, not the Bhagavat's. Why is this? If we had waited for your explanation about the way to achieve highest, complete enlightenment, we certainly would have been able to save ourselves by means of the Mahayana. However, we did not understand that you were teaching with skillful means, according to what is appropriate to us. When we heard the Buddha's teaching, we immediately accepted, contemplated, and understood it. O Bhagavat, since long ago I have reproached myself incessantly day and night. But now from the Buddha we have heard the unprecedented Dharma that we have never heard before, and it has removed all our doubts. I have obtained peace and tranquility in body and mind. Today I have nearly realized that I am truly the heir of the Buddha, born from the mouth of the Buddha, incarnated from the Dharma, and that I have